Welcome to the Dance Years. I'm Dave Pearce. Tonight we're going back to '94, the year that rave died and jungle exploded. And I've got 10 classic tracks for you to reminisce to. Baby D's Let Me Be Your Fantasy actually first came out in '92 when it got to number 87. It never really left the clubs though, and when it was re-released 2 years later, it went all the way to number 1.
Put this track together, boxed it up, took it out on the street, dub-plated it to the DJs. They started playing this tune. There was no promotion on it at all. We couldn't promote it because we didn't really have the money, and the response was just, every time it dropped, people were saying, "I've got to know what that tune is."
Let me be your fantasy. Let me touch your dreams. Just spread your wings, fly away.
We didn't know that it was actually going to go to number 1 because we don't like to sort of really know what's the situation is. I know you can know beforehand. And then hearing that Pato Banton had come down, it was like that's when I realised that, oh my God, we've done it. And I remember my knees just crumbling beneath me and falling to the floor. That honestly, I just crumbled and I don't know what was happening to me then. I was just on the floor and just like in disbelief. And it was complete party time after that, you know, complete party time.
Baby D, Let Me Be Your Fantasy, I think just epitomises the whole of, you know, the early '90s rave scene. The track is arguably one of the greatest tracks ever written, sung by a fantastically, phenomenally talented singer, and it's I have no words to describe it. It's great.
Let Me Be Your Fantasy. I think everyone loves that song. It sends shivers down my spine every time I hear it. I get a nipple erection every time I hear it. My hairs stand on end every time I hear it. It just reminds me so much of everyone together, just having the best time of their lives in a club or at an after party. Just everyone together just going, yes, let me be your fantasy. And I think everyone does want to be your fantasy at the end of the day.
At pioneering club Rage, the fast breakbeat sound of hardcore had been crossed with big ragga bass lines to create the sound of the moment, jungle.
I think when jungle appeared, it was tremendously exciting because it was very much a British music form and a multiracial music form, and one that, unlike house, which comes from America, could only have come from London, because it had the reggae, the dub, the kind of heavy kind of Jamaican influence that you get in a lot of great British music, from Massive Attack to, you know, Asian Dub Foundation or whatever.
Speed became the only factor that differentiated DJ A from DJ B, and that kind of caused the overall velocity of tunes to go up, which ultimately became quite a creative and quite an interesting musical genre.
They got to the point where the beats were so fast that the bass became half the speed of the beats. So the beats would be going at 160 beats per minute. The bass would be going at a reggae speed, which is about 80 beats per minute.
The purists were like, oh, no, they're destroying the music, and, you know, this kind of music, we don't understand it. And they didn't understand it, but, you know, we decided that we was going to go more down this level because it was something new, it was something fresh. No one else was doing it. We had a massive platform to play the music. And then it just kicked off, man. And, you know, people started to shout jungle on the dance floor. And when we were playing certain tracks, man, and We just thought, you know what, that's a wicked little tag.
It was like, you know, walking into heaven with all these people with their shirts off going mental and like blowing the horns. I was thinking, what the fuck is going on here? It's a bit far-fetched. Because it wasn't that kind of just, you know, people into hip-hop just kind of just going. It was like people were just going for it like in a different kind of way. They were just having it.
There was just this fantastically creative period where records like Ronnie Size, It's a Jazz Thing, for instance, or the early Goldie stuff, or Leviticus, The Burial, or any of these records just came out and there was bits of hip-hop, bits of ambient. And it just seemed that with this groove, this jungle groove, you could put anything you wanted on top, and they did. So it was pretty exciting.
Rough and Raw, my #9 tune, typified the jungle sound, and it was an anthem at clubs like Speed and Rage. Perhaps it's the ultimate jungle record. Here's Shy FX and the original Nutter.
One day some of the kids from the neighborhood carried my mother's groceries all the way home. You know why? It was out of respect.
No name, man. The original Nutter. Take in and take check. You can patch along the Shy FX. And when we come is murderation. All original gangster, man. Here when we tell them no. You hear me coming on imitate. Originate, become originate. Alright, mate. Now what you doing, mate? Here when we tell them coming up gears and I'm gonna stop that. Watch me tell you, boy. Watch this. Nanini war, no no no. Nanini war, no 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 no. Nanini war, no no no. Yeah, oh yeah. No 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 no. Bad boys in a London, rude boys in a England, bad boys in a Jamaica, rude boys in a Kingston. Watch out, you never know the gangster. Me say them in a jungle. Well, you never know the article.
Shy FX, original Nutter. Absolutely monster tune, and it still rips down to today. Big up Shy.
We tell everybody, watch it now, man. Me at the Nutter, original mad Nutter, original man Nutter, original mad Nutter, original man.
I live in South London, and he actually lived around the corner from me. And every time I used to see the guy, I used to go, "You are the Nutter, you are the Nutter." And he used to walk straight past me, but he's a good mate. And that was one of my memories from '94, and that used to just tear up, rip up, smash up all the clubs. It used to be an excellent, excellent track.
It was one of the first vocal tracks that really hit the crowd and easy for the crowd to sing along to. So anytime it does get played, the whole crowd knows it inside out, gets sung. Can even cut out the music, the crowd singing along to it. So it goes down well in the house party.
You never know you can patch the jungle. Well, me a the Nutter, original mad Nutter, original man Nutter, original mad Nutter.
In mid-94, the jungle scene was split by a huge controversy, all centred around General Levy.
I felt pretty sorry for General Levy when Incredible came out, because here was someone who just, I think in a fun way in the Face magazine said, "Oh, I'm the king of the jungle," but jungle was a very, very serious thing, you know, it was like our thing, you don't touch it, and he was seen to be sort of carrying the torch.
I've never ever said that I invented jungle, never said that I created jungle. That was all misconstrued by the media at the time.
I do know that there was a jungle committee. They did form a jungle committee, and I know that DJ Rap was one of the people that stood up against it and said, "I'll play what I want." It's ridiculous to try and censor music because of the guy's attitude.
Everybody who knows the score knows the score. I mean, you know, we all know he didn't invent jungle, so I don't know why everybody got so uptight about it.
That so-called quote was taken from a concert which we did, and we did the track, and I said to the public, 2,500 people were there, and I said on the mic, this jungle music, it's an amazing phenomenon, all right? This has been created in England by us,
as a whole, as a people, as English people, not having to rely on hip-hop and reggae music, and it was completely taken out of text, and it was just twisted around to make us look like we're egotistical and arrogant.
For me, I drew the line at people telling me what records to play and where to play them, and for me that's just like, I absolutely think that's crap, I won't do it, and that's it, and I fell out with everybody because of that. But at the same time, I don't really give a toss.
To me, anyone who ever boycotts a record and listens to someone else and says, don't play that tune because this man, blah, 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 then the person who doesn't play the tune is very soft and weak. You know, they need to go and get themselves a spine, because at the end of the day, music's for everyone, no matter what. There's no politics, no compromisations. We all got a set of ears, and those that are lucky to hear with them should be, you know, able to listen to what we like.
It's just great, the idea of this like really kind of amazing urban underground futuristic movement having a kind of women's institute type meeting around, you know, can you imagine Nirvana and REM sitting down to kind of, you know, ban Madonna records or something? I mean, that's the equivalent.
General Levy's Incredible was the track that kicked off all the arguments, and by coincidence, it's my number 8.
Wicked, wicked, jungle is massive. Wicked, wicked, jungle is massive. Wicked, wicked, jungle is massive. Wicked, wicked, incredible. But big up, all the original jungle is massive. The original dancehall jungle is there. General Levy alongside the MB. The world is in trouble. I will tell a murderer. It goes, I am the incredible general. Sensational with the gummy. Incredible general. Yo,
well, the track Incredible came about by the collaboration of a producer called M-Beat, and they basically had a concept on how they wanted to have a rhythm track. They gave me the track to listen to, and I just basically laid down some lyrics on the track, and then the rest is just history, you know? Well, I just come into the tune and I just heard it and I go, boy, I am the incredible general, booyaka, sensational. Yo, my the whole of them and spin them like a windmill. New talk for them, go to them and we got the skill. That's kind of nice, that's when you're on the bill, you know?
Booyaka, we don't take back no talk. Booyaka, booyaka. Incredible. Mr. Lee, people on the mind, they tell them I'm the general. Keep a back in my style, wicked, original.
We didn't say, all right, we're going to make a hit song today, which is going to go into the national top 10. We just did a track for the vibe. It sounded good. Let's do this. And so when it actually happened, it was just like, it was such a surprise.
Booyaka, booyaka, MB run the dance. Booyaka, booyaka, we not take back no talk. Booyaka, booyaka.
1994, great tracks came out. One track in particular stands out in my mind. Incredible, MB. General Levy, and that tune kicks up so much ruckus, not just on the dance floor, but amongst the community. It really caused a lot of problems. He made a statement, didn't go down too well. General Levy, big up yourself, you're still going strong.
Yeah, well, I think that there's always space for new ideas, you know. So basically, when the time came, the time just came, and we just took control of it, you know. And the opportunity came for us to do a track which blended the ragga element, which I brought to the table, and the drum and bass jungle element, which M-Beat brought to the table. So we just dealt with it, you know, and just blended the two together, and the chemistry was successful.
Booyaka, booyaka, we not take back no talk. Booyaka, booyaka.
Coming up in part 2 of the dance years, how clubbers became criminals and the unstoppable rise of a certain gold-toothed jungle icon. To relax to, and with beautiful vocals from Diane Charlemagne, it's easy to enjoy this classic. The tune comes from Goldie's Timeless album, which was the first jungle album to be released on a major label and achieve major appeal.
To me, Goldie's In This City Life was like such an important record, because not just because it was a drum and bass record that sort of suddenly put the genre on the map, but because of what it was saying lyrically, and because of the fact it was a song, and because it had that soulful flavour to it, that element to it as well.
City Life is timeless. It's just an exponent of. It's just, you know, it's just a really beautiful experience making a long record. I just woke up and said I want to make a really long record. I want to make something different. Yeah, I really enjoyed that video. The video's a bit, I mean, that video's way ahead. It was way ahead of its time video. I remember using Paradise Club for where the bed was with Conrad. You know, Conrad's one of my old friends who works at Cuts. And we used boxer shorts to lean over on the bed and stuff. Yeah, it was just good because I used everyone from the scene. That's what I was always interested in, really. You know what I mean?
There are certain records that when they come out, they cross all genres. You know, all DJs should be playing those records because they are that important, and that is certainly one of those records.
It's one of those records that I kind of feel we'll look back on in years and years and years to come, and it really will define how people felt a lot about society then and how people felt about music, because it really did sound like Inner City Life.
1994 was the year that the government poked their noses into the outdoor party scene. They decided to outlaw raves by introducing a hard-hitting piece of legislation called the Criminal Justice Bill.
Legislation regarding free and pay parties was so hazy and grey back in the early 90s that very often if you had a lawyer on site for your rave, he would likely know a good deal more than even the most senior of police officers and licensing authorities.
It was a Conservative government, and John Major had all this stuff about England is, you know, the sound of a cricket bat hitting a ball and the taste of warm beer, and the last thing you want is, like, you know, 40,000 dreadlocked, bug-eyed ravers in the field next door breaking up the cricket. So you can see why the Conservative government really didn't want it.
Suddenly the whole, like, culture was criminalised. Now you are breaking the law. You're not just having a good time, you're not going out and dancing and possibly breaking the law. Now all you've got to do is be in possession of a flyer and be on your way to a rave, and you cease to be a citizen and you are now a criminal. So it was a very, very powerful piece of legislation that really, I mean, it spelt the end for a certain kind of rave.
It was music characterised by the emission of a series of repetitive beats. That was the official language in Clause 58. And under the Criminal Justice Act, when it was passed, if you had, say, 3 mates and you were in your garden and you had a record player turned up to a certain volume, you could be arrested and potentially go to prison.
Even the Musicians' Union were up in arms about that, actually. My father's a musician, and he is a member of the Musicians' Union, And they wrote after the Criminal Justice Bill, you know, this effectively means that an orchestra in somebody's garden playing Bach is suddenly breaking the law. There's more than 10 of them. They're listening to music, and they are suddenly in breach of this new Criminal Justice Bill.
It did make people realise that, you know, wow, you know, this Castle Morton must have really had an impact for all these like government lawyers to sit and draw up, you know, did they argue about what was repetitive beats? I mean, did they sit there with techno records and go, how can we kind of characterise, you know, this, that if you're playing classical music, the beats aren't repetitive, so that's okay, but what if you were playing reggae? Is that repetitive, you know?
What's next? Yeah, what, you're not allowed to read a certain book? What, you're not allowed to like look at a piece of artwork? I mean, this is in a civilised British culture? I don't think so.
Now, 94 wasn't just about jungle. There were a few uplifting Dutch trance sounds doing the business on the dance floor as well. Now, my number 6 is a classic of its kind. Here's Atlantic Ocean and Waterfall.
No potted history of dance music should ever be completed without reference to the productions of the Dutch. For a relatively small, albeit very overpopulated nation, they have had a disproportionately large amount of huge records, all of which have got a kind of funky undertone and a quirky vibe that has made their records absolutely excellent over the past 10 years.
Atlantic Ocean Waterfall was one of those records that really didn't mean anything in London. It was massive, massive record up north. It was one of those things that if you saw the breakdown of sales, it had sold loads sort of like in the north and hardly any in London, because it was just one of those things. It was an anthem in some of those big clubs in Liverpool and Manchester. It's an instrumental, and it's one of those ones which, when you hear it, you sort of think, yeah, I think I have heard that before, but you just didn't know what it was called. And I think there's quite a few records like that where maybe they were instrumentals and they had to release them 2 or 3 times before they were hits, because people were going in and trying to hum things, the record shop sort of like staff, and then they don't quite know what it was, so they sort of have to, you know, sort of put them out 2 or 3 times before it finally sort of drum themselves into the general public what they were called.
The Criminal Justice Bill provoked massive protests from the rave generation, who didn't take too kindly to being told not to party.
I was working at a merchandising company when the whole Criminal Justice Bill was just about to go through, and I managed to persuade my boss to design a T-shirt, and he designed this great big orange stop sign. It said, "Stop the Criminal Justice Bill." They went in all the shops in London. I don't think they sold loads because it was sort of done in a bit of a rush, but they look good.
I think the Criminal Justice Bill wasn't very popular amongst the police because they knew they'd make themselves deeply unpopular themselves if they were to enforce it. The sad thing is that in theory, if you are found playing repetitive beats to more than 30 people, you could be near enough accused of causing a riot.
All of a sudden, you know, you had raves which were sort of dominated by people that weren't taking any nonsense, you know, we're going to put this rave on and that's that. And then those people are against the police and the police are against them, so you're not putting this on and yes we are and oh no we're not, and then you've got a whole load of kind of ravers in the middle trying to get to enjoy themselves, and it's just kind of not happening.
I remember, you know, the police knocked my door down, arrested me, took me out to Ipswich, kept me overnight, sort of interviewing me, and I actually got legal aid for it, and I got sort of barrister and a QC, and I think the government spent like £250,000 on this court case. All I got was 240 hours community service, which is like the most you can get. And I went along to to do my community service, and I've got people there that have sort of been nicking cars or sort of petty drug dealers, all that sort of stuff. And they've all got 100 hours, so they all think I'm sort of the top don with my 240 hours community service. Oh, what did you do?
They had the special party squad. Do you remember? They
Yeah,
used to turn up.
I mean, I know people who went down for like 10 years, like in '98.
I remember having a tea party with my nan and they came through the back door one time. Trunging with nan and everything. She had more than 50
What'd
rounds.
you do for a jump cake, Graham?
Huh? I nipped out the back door, mate. I hot-footed and left.
Hold the baby.
Now, we all know how the great British public like the odd gimmick, but banjo techno, that really was taking the piss a little bit. Never mind, I've given it my number 5 position because it did put a smile on people's faces. This is the Grid and Swamp Thing.
The Grid, Swamp Thing. Certainly the Grid for me, I always think of Mr. Ball and his soft cell history, but I always think that the Grid have taken on a kind of very electro 80s kind of terminology in their music, and for me that's something which is very close to my kind of nostalgic history, and I think they fuse that quite well. They do something from the 80s, something which is quite retrospective in a way, but they also do it with quite contemporary kind of angles and beats, and it's definitely something I would keep in my record collection.
Swamp Thing was sort of, yeah, that was that guy from, yeah, what's it called? Soft Cell, that's it.
Yeah. Brilliant band, and Justin Robertson remix.
It was the start of the whole sort of like, let's get your banjo out and wear your dungarees and stick straw in your mouth, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Or up your nose.
All right.
One of the rising stars of the DJ scene back then had a bright future ahead of him. He carried on rising and recently joined me at Radio 1. Here's how it happened for Seb Fontaine.
My careers advisor was very much kind of, you know, what are you going to do when you grow up? Don't be stupid, you're not going to play records, don't be daft. No one back then knew what DJs were going to become. I mean, there were certainly very few famous DJs, or the ones that were famous were not ones that you'd necessarily look up to or want to be. You know, we're talking the Hairy Cornflake, Jimmy Savile, etc., etc. And I kind of balanced some crap jobs and some DJing all at the same time. And then one day it was going well enough not to have to work anymore, and that's the big break, you know. That was the big thing. Right, I am actually a DJ now. I'm not just DJing on the side. Those were exciting times. Music was very new, very fresh. Loads of illegal parties, loads of standing in fields, thinking, great, it's taken me 6 hours to get here, I love it. When are we going? You kind of think as a young DJ, you know, yeah, I can take on any of these guys, or you believe you can, you have to have some self-belief. The truth of the matter is, I've learned so much in the last 13 years, and probably more in the last 5. I've had great advice, I've been really helped and propped up along the way. But to be a good DJ, I really do feel comes with age. I've changed what I was playing. I was playing much probably more commercial, and then probably went quite hard, and now I've tried to slow things down a little bit. I want to see people dancing on the dance floor, not just jumping up and down frantically. It just gradually grew and grew that I wanted to play clubs where people didn't care that you were going to play the same set every week. People wanted to hear what was different, or what was deeper, or what was hard. You were going to get the same reaction by playing a record that they didn't know. And I think that's what the turning point was. Getting the same reaction from the crowd by playing a record they've never heard before is what's still one of the biggest buzzes a DJ can ever get. DJing still is exciting, and probably more so lately with everything going on. You know, with Type, Radio 1, the Cream residency probably kicked the whole thing off again for me, and I've been, you know, a pretty happy bunny for a long time now. It still amazes me now where DJing has taken me.
in terms of places I've been to, things I've done, how many people you've played to, etc., etc. You know, it's really, DJing's been my life.
The US garage scene continues to throw up some excellent soulful garage tunes, probably none better than the next one coming up from Barbara Tucker. This is Beautiful People, and it's my number 4.
Beautiful People came about before I even recorded it. I was a promoter with the Underground Network. My partner's name was Don Welch in New York City. My partner knew Louis Vega, and one of my workers was telling Louis one day, oh, my boss sings, you should get with her one day. He took me to his studio, he auditioned me, and then he's like, perfect, we're gonna do something. He had this music. He said, oh, my wife, India, wrote this song called Beautiful People, and come on and let's work with this. Okay, Lim Springsteen, who's a part of Mood to Swing, those two initially wrote the song. Then I came in and added the deep, deep inside. That's actually an ad-lib that I was always doing, as well as the third verse. So that's how it became 3 writers on the track, as well as Louis Vega doing the music to the track.
The biggest thing I remember about that track was just the background and the arrangement. I think little Louis Vega did that song with Barbara. And I think, I'm not sure that was her first release on Strictly. Again, I'm a new kid, so I don't remember everything. But I just remember the backgrounds in that song. And every time I used to hear, I just like to sing along with Beautiful People. I just was like, oh man, I couldn't believe it.
Barbara Tucker, Beautiful People, one of my favourite tracks. Just really happy, you know, jolly sort of song. I think it's just a really uplifting song. I like vocal songs as well, that's why one of the reasons why I like it. She's got a brilliant voice.
Very emotional record for me and Ricky, I think. You know, it was a major record, really. You know, the whole thing, very soulful, and you know, just listen to the words. That's all I have to say, really, about that. You know, as producers, it was very inspirational as well. You know, very.
But pretty much, you know, Beautiful People is all about not judging people. It's about what was on the outside. You're so busy judging people on the outside, you don't even know what's on the inside.
Coming up after the break, the start of 2 London clubbing institutions. And I've got my top 3 tunes of the year. Welcome back to the Dance Years and my top 3 tunes of the year.
Rollo, who's gone on to be rather successful, both in the guise of his sister Dido and her amazingly huge album, plus his act Faithless, and I were actually best friends at school, and I met him in the street one day and we set up a studio together which we co-owned for about 4 or 5 years. And we were making similar sort of up-tempo, high-octane, minor key, uplifting records that were rubbish. And Rollo went away, made two in the form of Felix, Don't You Want Me, and OT Quartet's Hold That Sucker Down, that were absolute classics. And while it slightly guiled me that he had no experience of this genre of music and made the record so much better than I did, it still gave me a record that I was given pretty much first as a DJ, and it remains one of my faves to this day.
OT Quartet was like just that massive, big rave, massive room sort of sound. Huge vocal, he used to play it at massive raves in Leeds. Just massive, massive record. The whole Rollo Goes Whatever thing was like, I used to buy every single one of their records and play them all, and that whole sound just suited at the time all the big sort of raves that I was playing. Just that massive sort of, the keyboards, like, it was like Rollo's signature, wasn't it, that keyboard? And just, again, an absolute must if you're playing a massive event with sort of 4,000 or 5,000 people.
You gotta hold that sucker down.
It's funny to think of Rollo as being a real influential producer, but he certainly is, because back in '94 there were very few minor key uplifting chords, with the exception of the rather liberal and unacceptable use of pianos. Yet, if you look at a lot of the huge chart hits, like Energy 52's Capital Mar, or a whole plethora of others from a couple of years ago, he was like 4 years ahead of his time, and that's virtually unknown in any form of music production, to create a record that's so ahead of its time that it takes nearly half a decade for the influence to rub off on a succession of chart hits.
In London, King's Cross was becoming a new destination for clubbers as the Bagley's complex opened. Bagley's was to house two of London's most popular nights, Freedom and Hard Times.
Bagley's Hard Times, one of the best nights I think I've been to. There was loads of hype surrounding it at the time. Everyone was like, you're not going to get in there, no way. You know, the tickets were sold out well in advance. The queue, I've never seen anything like it. It was absolutely well past the barriers.
Lots of times I went to Bagley's, it was always huge, dark, lots of rooms, you're never quite sure where you were going. Filthy, the floor there was just mud everywhere, but people were really having it in there.
It was just too packed. It was, you couldn't dance, you were literally like that, just all beside each other, trying to walk around. And as well as that, the venue was so big that you couldn't find your friends. You was walking around for like 2 hours by yourself, like, oh flip, where's everyone gone?
And I've seen a lot of promoters come and go and do their thing here, and a lot of stuff sort of hasn't worked. And during that sort of stage at 95, 96, this club wasn't doing that great. And I, with my business partner, Debbie Lee, we decided to do our own night. And we called it Freedom. And we've sort of never looked back since.
The best thing about Freedom is the atmosphere and the people. I mean, the club gives it the atmosphere because it's got this like warehouse feel about it. And even like, when I went there clubbing 4 or 5 years ago, it had that feeling then, it hasn't changed. And you go in there and the people are still the same, they're just so friendly.
People come here, they feel safe, it's a safe environment. There's no aggravation, we never have any trouble in the club. So everyone comes here for a real good time.
There's no pretentiousness at all, and you can tell everyone's from all different walks of life and they're all meeting in one place. And they've got quite a few different rooms as well, so you get like different styles of music going on all the time. And maybe because I'm a Londoner myself, I mean, I come home every Saturday to 5 to 7 down there, and it's just like coming home every week and meeting all my friends.
My number 2 track was built around a classic disco sample. It was massive at Bagley's and it's still firing today. Here's JX and Son of a Gun.
JX's Son of a Gun was a really good backing track with a vocal that maybe wasn't entirely necessary, but it did have the girlies singing along in the aisles. You could have been quite sexist at the time and talked about how girls generally like to sing-along factor in their dance records more than the guys. But it's strange because now the girls seem to like it even more banging than the males, so I don't know where the change took place in the meantime.
Just like Felix, he's another young lad, very young. He was, again, 18 at the time. Very sweet guy again. And again, it was off cassette. It was one of those rare, it's very, of 100 releases that we've had on Hooge, it's very, the amount that actually I heard as a demo on cassette through the post, unsolicited, is quite rare. So, and again, he sent it through the post. I would ask him to change bits of it. One thing I do remember, for some amazing reason, it had a cow mooing at the very beginning of it, and I remember we got rid of that, which is bizarre when I think of it. I can't think why, but he had a kind of big mooing sample, and that went. And the riff, actually a tiny bit of the riff we changed in there and stuff like that, bass lines and stuff. But it was essentially the Felix one was very much a different cup of tea, whereas the Son of a Gun was pretty much there when it came to me.
What I found interesting about JX Son of a Gun is they took a vocal snippet from this old record by Ecstasy, Passion and Pain called Touch and Go, and that was a big sort of like dramatic 70s I Will Survive type disco record, and there's these lines at the beginning which is almost like, it's just the girl singing, it's almost like part of a verse where she goes, a man who's on the run is a dirty son of a gun, and they just took these two lines, and this record's quite slow it comes from, and they've sort of like sped them up and put them over the top of this high energy record. It's like the sort of line that no one would write now, a man who's on the run is a dirty son of a gun, and that's what made it stick out maybe is lyrically, because there's so many records now, it's like Take Me Higher, I Love You, I want to do it to you all night long and whatever, and this was just like, a man who's on the run is a dirty son of a gun.
King's Cross wasn't all about big, messy warehouse parties. Just next door to Bagley's was a new club, offering a more intimate and glamorous night out.
The first time I went to the Cross, I remember I just got back from Ibiza and I'd only just got into the house music scene from Ibiza, and it was a really new experience coming into a London club that felt glamorous. There were beautiful sofas to sit down where you could chill out a bit and chat, and lots of lovely statues and bowls of fruit and mirrors and canopies from the ceiling.
We quite like being intimate, we quite like being small, and we quite like being personal. We won't get on that big cream ministry gatecrasher bandwagon because it's not really what we're about.
It's the people that go to the Cross that make the Cross. They're totally into the music, but more than that, they're totally into meeting new people, which is really refreshing because nowadays it's about going to a super club, wearing a fluffy bra, shaking your thing, getting off your head and getting off with someone.
It was really nice that you could dance but not get too sweaty, which is great because when you're obviously a bit older, you've lost that energy to dance all night, and it was lovely to sit down and relax.
The musical element was very, very different because it had to cater itself around the venue. Because the venue was quite small and it was kind of quite bar-led, there was that great big bar. It kind of brought an older crowd into the configuration, and the music got a little bit more funky because just before all of those raves, it was like really hard and like happy hardcore and blah, 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 white gloves, dummies and all a bit mad. And the Cross brought a bit of sophistication to London, I think.
Well, it wasn't just the Cross that would have been playing my #1 tune of the year. In '94, you couldn't really go anywhere without hearing this next tune. New York DJ Eric Murillo teamed up with a mad stuntman to bring us this classic, I Like to Move It.
I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. You like to move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. You like to move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. You like to move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. You like to move it. All girls all over the world. Original man, stuntman, pon your case, man. I love how all girls are move them body. And when you move your body, you move it nice and sweet and sexy. Alright?
One of the tunes that you'd have probably found in our box, or some of the tunes you would have found, is probably Real to Real. I Like to Move It, which was on Strictly. That was probably one of my favourite tunes at the time, because you found that in Clubland you had quite a big house following, so that the up-tempo sort of garage was where we were looking for on that side of things, as opposed to the sort of downbeat vibe.
Sweet, fine, energetic. Bitch up on the ocean, that's a bit tight. Woman, you nice, sweet, fantastic. Bitch up on the ocean, that's a bit tight. Come on, you nice, sweet, fine, energetic. Bitch up on the ocean, that's a bit tight. Come on, I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. You like to move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. You like to move it.
I like to move it, move it. I like to move it. I was on tour with them. It was Barbara Tucker, Real to Real, Hyper Go-Go. Remember, come on, you remember them, right? With Bryant Chambers, remember him? Oh boy, I remember we were doing a gig in Scotland, taking the ferry over, and I'm busy sleeping because I think it was a long ferry ride, right? And I wake up, and he's downstairs in the lobby singing I Like to Move It, and everybody with drinks in their hand, all drunk on the ferry and singing. He's very free, and I like him, that man. He's cool.
Woman, you nice and energetic. Bitch up on the ocean, that's a bit tight. Woman, you nice broad waist, and you nice tip. Big man flip and bust up them lip. Woman, you nice and energetic. Bitch up on the ocean, that's a bit tight. Woman, I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. You like to move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. You like to move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. You like to move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. You like to move it.
Well, that was the year that was 1994. Brought back some great memories. Next week, jungle becomes drum and bass, and Ibiza gets ready to blow up as we head into 1995. I'll see you then.
I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. You like to move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it, move it. I like to move it,